The story of the Clovis culture, first Americans of the Stone Age. Scene 3, the Toolmakers. The first Americans didn't just stumble onto the continent. They brought technology with them that would influence cultures for thousands of years. This is the third episode in our series on the prehistory of North America and what eventually happened to them. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the archaeology of the Clovis culture, the oldest widely accepted culture in North America. In the last two episodes, we looked at the evidence for people crossing into North America via the Bering Land Bridge during the last Ice Age, and there are many more sites like this where archaeologists have found butchered animal bones. Using stone tools like these takes a great deal of patience and skill. There are lots of theories, but the reality is that after 10,000 years, almost everything that might have told us what happened to the Clovis people has been lost to time. Proposed by physicist Richard Firestone and his colleagues, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis argues that the Clovis culture wasn't replaced. It was wiped out by a massive comet shower. Over the next 6,000 years, they slowly developed new technologies and new ways of surviving in a rapidly changing world. Eventually, around 500 years ago, those descendants would develop the magnificent cultures that European explorers would encounter when they arrived in the 16th century. According to the theory, the impact of comets caused massive wildfires and disrupted the climate, destroying the Clovis way of life. To learn more about them, check out the resources in the description below. A special thanks to our supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you'd like to see your name on the screen and contribute to the production of these videos, join our membership program today. I'll see you next time. Evidence for this theory includes unusually high levels of radioactive isotopes in sediment layers dating to 12,900 years ago. Scientists believe that this spike may have come from a nearby supernova, an exploding star that sent cosmic debris raining down on Earth. There are also microscopic diamonds found in the same layer of sediment that could have formed only under extreme heat and pressure, perhaps from a comet's impact with Earth. Of course, proving that a comet really did wipe out the Clovis culture is very difficult. But if it's true, then there must be physical evidence left behind. Unfortunately, thus far, none of the proposed evidence has panned out. There are some gaps in the archaeological record that coincide with the Younger Dryas, but they aren't unique to it. Also, the Clovis culture thrived for thousands of years after the proposed impact event, suggesting that whatever happened, it didn't happen all at once. Still, the possibility that the Clovis people were wiped out by a comet or meteor shower is an exciting idea. But whether or not it's true, it doesn't change the fact that their disappearance marked a turning point in North American prehistory. So archaeologists are left with nothing but scraps of evidence to try and piece together the mystery. What we do know is that around 12,000 years ago, the climate began to warm. As the ice melted, sea levels rose, which flooded coastal areas and cut off many populations from the sea. At the same time, the warmer temperatures led to a whole new set of plants and animals moving into newly habitable areas. And suddenly, the huge woolly mammoths and mastodons that the Clovis people had relied on for food disappeared. Unable to adapt to these rapid changes, the Clovis culture collapsed. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they did adapt, but simply left behind no trace of their new ways of life. Unfortunately, without written history, we can't know for sure what happened to the Clovis people. And that same patience and skill shows up in the way the Clovis people hunted and gathered. Take the site of Mastodon State Historic Park in Colorado. Here, archaeologists found the remains of a Columbian mammoth and clear evidence that the Clovis people had taken every bit of meat off its bones. The ribs, the vertebrae, even the skull, all show signs of butchery. At the site of Jones Ranch in Texas, archaeologists found the butchered remains of 18 prehistoric animals. The animals included North American camels, horses, and bison. Taken together, these findings tell us that the Clovis people were successful hunters. They were able to hunt large game and take it down with the incredibly well-crafted darts and spears tipped with obsidian blades. But they were also opportunistic. When smaller prey was available, they hunted it too. For example, at the Leonard Mill Creek site in Kentucky, Archaeologists found evidence that the Clovis people hunted small animals like rabbits and squirrels. Some of the rabbit bones even showed signs of being cracked open to extract the nutritious brain. So the Clovis culture wasn't just made of nomadic hunters following herds across the plains. They were flexible, changing their diet based on what was available. And that adaptability would help them thrive across such a large area. It was expertly crafted from a high-quality source of flint and had been carefully notched at one end and then flaked to a razor-sharp edge. One of the amazing things about the Clovis culture is that they were able to spread so far and wide, reaching from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic Circle, from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific Northwest. But as far as archaeologists can tell, they only lasted a couple hundred years, maybe even less. This is a big part of what makes the Clovis culture so fascinating. It raises questions like, why did they disappear? What happened to them? And how does that relate to later Native American cultures? Each Clovis point was a masterpiece. Fluted, balanced, deadly. These were more than weapons. They were a technology ahead of their time, spreading across a continent. All across North America, there are small clusters of rocks with flakes missing from them, the leftover cores from which Clovis points were made. These cores were struck repeatedly, patiently chipped away until the best angle was achieved. The finished product, perfectly symmetrical, exquisitely crafted, an example of the human mind working through trial and error, creating a masterpiece of efficiency. Each fluted point could be used to tip several arrows or spears before being too worn down to continue its service. With this technology, the people who wielded them would have been adept hunters. Its distinctive shape made it stand out from other projectile points found at the site. Archaeologists named it the Clovis point. Since then, more than 30,000 Clovis points have been discovered all over North America. They range from Maine to Arizona and south into Mexico. And they've been found at hundreds of sites from Florida to the Great Lakes. That's a lot of data to work with, which has allowed archaeologists to reconstruct one of the first pictures of life for early Americans. We also explored the idea of another migration across the Pacific from Japan. If you haven't seen those episodes yet, check them out. But if you have, there are still some pretty big holes in our understanding of how people first got to the Americas. One of those holes is what happened to the earliest Americans once they arrived here. How did they survive? What kind of tools did they use? In 1932, archaeologists found a spear point in the Blackwater River in New Mexico. What's most remarkable about these points is the incredible skill it took to make them. But that's not all they were doing. Across North America, there are dozens of sites where archaeologists have uncovered remnants of meals eaten by Clovis people. But how long did they thrive for? Unfortunately, the truth is we don't know the answers to these questions. And that's a big reason why the theory of the Younger Dryas impact event is so compelling. After the Clovis culture vanished, small groups of people spread out across the continent. I hope you enjoyed this episode on the Clovis culture.